So um, my name is Steve Alexander, head of marketing and partnerships at Anagram. With me this evening are Joe Zewe and Sue Creek from Eyenavision, as well as some other folks from Eyenavision in the chat. Why don't we get started with you, Sue? Introduce yourself a little bit. Let us know kind of what you do at Eyenavision, and we can kind of move on.
Yeah, so I've been with Eyenavision about 7 years, and I am VP of Sales and Training. So I work with all the ECPs and their staff and help them increase their sales, offer products that we only sell to ECPs. So it's exciting and very excited about our new frame factory for North Point.
Yeah, speaking of your frame factory, that's where Joe is right now. Joe, if you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself a little bit and give us a quick look around.
Sure. I'm Joe Zewe. I'm the owner here at Eyenavision, and behind me is some of the frame factory here. And Anthony, you might want to take a spin here and kind of show everybody what we're looking at here. But this is our frame operation, which is separate from our shipping and receiving operation and our inventory area. We also have a lab and an office area here, but we added this onto the space during the pandemic and got up and running about a year ago. And we're 100% in business now.
So this is in some far off place in China, right? That's where you're coming from?
Exactly. Yeah, we're in Wenzhou, actually. No, we're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, right outside of downtown Pittsburgh, in an old warehouse building that actually used to be a casket factory that was converted into a mixed-use development, part office, and we're really the only manufacturing facility here, but it works out really well for us.
Oh, that's fantastic. So let's kind of dive in. We've got a couple of months ago, we published an article called Bringing Local Back, where we discussed the value of carrying American-made eyewear, in addition to other things that practices can control what they can control. And we're very lucky, very fortunate to have Joe, you write this article and tell your story of in eye care. So I would love to hear a brief recap. How did you start North Point? I know you mentioned during the pandemic. So how did you get from where you were to where you are now?
Well, we've been in the eyewear business since roughly 2008 with the chemistry clip was our original product. And we added a small optical lab, which has gradually grown to be a pretty significant part of our business. Much of what we do there is make the chemistry clip. And then we added some more. We have a line of computer readers, and we actually started importing frames from China and also from Europe. And that whole process wasn't a particularly fulfilling undertaking. And we would go to trade shows, and we'd go to trade shows both in Hong Kong and in China. We were going to the shows in Europe like Mito and Silmo, and you start seeing the machines and the equipment. You start visiting factories. We really became interested in trying to grow the business. And one of the things we became interested in was trying to figure out a way to do our own frames. And just gradually over time, by meeting with equipment companies, touring different factories, talking to suppliers, we kind of pieced together a game plan. And then finally pulled the trigger a couple of years ago to start buying the equipment and building out the factory and building a team around it, and here we are today. So it's been a long process. I mean, it's taken years. I mean, this goes back to probably 2014. We started looking at equipment, and there just wasn't a template to follow, so we kind of figured it out on our own. And it took a lot of time, but now looking back on it, I'm glad we took our time because it was a very complex process.
So in the article, you mentioned that around 95% of the frames sold in the States are made overseas.
Right.
What do you think, I guess the simplest way to ask the question, why? Why is that the case?
Well, when we first got involved, one of the things that I did is I talked to some of the old timers in the business and actually a few people that were retired, and actually visited the American Optical factory up in Massachusetts, or the museum there, and to get a feel for what the industry used to look like. And And there are a couple different reasons in terms of, the distribution model for American Eyewear was outdated. Um, the manufacturing process became outdated with the introduction of CNC machines. Actually, some of the processes in the lab with patternless edges opened up to, countless shapes, which I think the European eyewear manufacturers took advantage of. So all these different things were working against American manufacturing. And then, finally with production in Asia picking up, and especially in China, their price point is still much lower. Their manufacturing costs, it just became difficult to compete. So like many other industries, it gradually migrated offshore. And with that, all the companies who make the equipment and supply, the acetate and the metal, all other things you need to make eyewear, moved offshore as well. So it really left the U.S. optical industry without, frame production. And that's been one of the challenges of opening up our factory, is figuring out a way to source the things that you need to actually make the frames.
Mhm. Well, yeah, it sounds like an incredible undertaking, especially, I mean, from an outsider's perspective, it looks like you and Eyenavision and Northpoint Eyewear are sort of swimming upstream, right? Everyone is moving overseas, or everyone has already moved overseas. What
Right.
was it about the market, or the opportunity, or your goal as an entrepreneur that had you decide, you know what, we can do this here, we can do this in Pittsburgh, we can do this and serve our customers as well as, if not better than, the bigger companies that are doing it overseas? Was there like a crystallizing moment that said, we could do this, or was it more gradual in kind of learning this side of the business that led you down this path?
It was gradual, but if there was a crystallizing moment, it was when I visited with one of the equipment companies, took me to several factories in France. And I figured if they can make frames in France, because they have similar labor costs as what we have here in the US, and they face the same issues. But when I saw the way they built frames, the way they made things, and the talent and the skilled people they had in their frame factories, I realized there's no reason why we can't do it in the United States as well. So that trip in particular, and I also saw the quality of what they were doing. I was very impressed. I thought there's no reason why we can't do this in the United States. And so that in particular, that was the moment I really became committed that we've got to do this and we could do it and get it done, because, like I said, if they could do it in Europe with the same kind of labor costs that we have, there's no reason why we can't do it here.
Excellent. So it was, when did Northpoint Eyewear go from an idea to a collection?
It was a gradual. So we had worked with a local marketing agency to develop the Northpoint concept, and we were in the process of trying to kick off the manufacturing frames, and we got the first piece of equipment into our factory literally the week that everything started shut down in March of 2020 for COVID. And so at that point, we hired a couple of employees to be like the the core team to build from, and they stayed with us, but it really delayed. We couldn't get equipment shipped here. The companies that we were buying the equipment from didn't want to do the training because they wanted to be able to do it in person. They didn't want to do it remote because we were buying everything from Europe. And so that really delayed things. So we kind of stepped back and we moved at a much slower pace. And then eventually, when things opened up, we were able to get the equipment shipped here. And I would say for a good 6 months, we were making frames, many of which were, I would call, experimental. Some of the designs actually are designs that we have now, but it took a good 6 to 8 months before we really perfected what we were trying to do, and really got into a production mode where we were comfortable that what we were making was something that was at the level of quality that we wanted to be able to sell. And that would have been about a year ago that we reached that point. In the fall of 2021. So and then through that process, it was part of the difficulty was building a team, because it's not like you can put an ad in the paper or online saying, hey, eyewear manufacturers wanted. There is no such thing. So we had to kind of hire people that, in an environment where it's very hard to attract people, we hired a group of people that are were very intrigued by what we're doing, and fortunately, we've got a really good group of people here. We have very little turnover. and that's been a big help because there's so much knowledge that we've captured, and there's so many processes that we've worked on and perfected, and some of the things we're doing here is actually unique to eyewear. We kind of have a little bit of a different approach in some of the areas, and some of the equipment that we bought is very high tech and requires a level of skill that we're lucky that we have the people that we have because they've really embraced what we're doing. And
It sounds a bit like you were sort of building the train tracks as you were on the train, right? Given that the timing of everything, the difficulty, I mean, glad to be, I hesitate to say like smooth sailing now, but glad to have that most difficult part behind you, right?
I really feel like we've got the difficult part behind us now, and now, we're focused on doing things to, build our collection, adding new colors. We're into more of the fun parts, new designs, working closely with customers, and that's the fun side of the business. It really is. And, but it took going through that, the difficulty. We knew it was going to be tough. What we didn't know is the areas, a lot of the areas that were the most difficult were the things that we thought would be the easiest. And some of the things we thought would be the easiest ended up being the most difficult. But it was a real learning experience. And like I said, we really feel like we've got a team here that knows what they're doing.
Fantastic. So you mentioned that you were working with a marketing agency to come up with the North Point concept. Where does the name come from, and what is the concept?
Well, out of coincidence, we're actually located on North Point Street. We're at the corner of Reedsdale Street and North Point. So that made sense. We're on the North Shore of Pittsburgh. The whole idea of North being directional, for people that navigate made sense. And then we just try to tie North Point into, some of the things locally related to Eyenavision with, we named our frames after neighborhoods here in Pittsburgh. We named our sunglasses after the different bridges here in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh has more bridges than any other city in the country. So hopefully we won't run out of frame names anytime soon. But we try to make it part of the fabric of the community that we live in with North Point. Like I said, we're on the North Shore of Pittsburgh, and we're located on North Point Drive. And like I said, North Point being as a directional symbol to guide you. And it served us well. We were really happy with the work that we did with the firm. It was a very collaborative process, a lot of input from our team as well, in trying to establish what our brand's all about.
So I'm wearing actually the North Point Brookline this evening.
Right.
Okay. Now, obviously, you've got much better models than me in general, but where does Brookline come from? The name?
Brookline is actually one of the neighborhoods in Pittsburgh. It's just south of the southern part of the city, and it's just a neighborhood in Pittsburgh. So
It's nice to be able to tie, the name to a local place. I mean, I think it speaks to the overall goal of American-made eyewear, local-made eyewear.
Right.
I'm going to jump back real quick to the Spyglass article, and throughout the piece we talk about where North Point came from, so some of the goals that you were trying to accomplish, and we laid out 5 reasons to carry American-made frames, and we won't go through all of them, but I think a couple of points to highlight. So you'd mentioned streamlined production process, shop local, feedback being valued and encouraged. Private label and customization, and then agile marketing and sales support. And I think, some of those you can take as an understanding. Shop local is great for the local economy, but some of those things are probably unique and of significant interest to the audience here. So if I could ask, when you say feedback is valued and encouraged, what do you mean by that?
Well, we talk to our customers, and when we first came out with our initial designs, we had a lot of feedback from opticians regarding, for instance, they liked the frames, they liked the comfort, they liked the way they were constructed, but they felt as though some of the colors were lacking; they were too basic. So we added some crystal colors, some very bold colors initially, and then this spring we really went crazy with respect to adding a lot of new colors from a couple of the Italian acetate manufacturers to really, brighten up the lineup. And a lot of that was based upon feedback from opticians in terms of the colors they would like to see. The other piece of feedback that we got is that they would like to see more wider shapes for both men and women. And especially with respect to women's eyewear, there's a lack of wider shapes for people that have either a wider face or they just like to have a wider frame. And so what we did was, with some of the new frame designs we added, we focused on some wider shapes. And then with some of the existing shapes, we actually enlarged those so that we have two sizes. We have maybe one that's like a 49 and one that's like a 52, eye size. And so we did those types of things to try to, respond to the feedback. And those are the kind of things that we can do. And instead of having to wait 9 to 12 months to have frames produced over in China, we can, do them anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 to 8 weeks, depending upon what we have from a production run standpoint and what we have in inventory. But we can reintroduce new concepts much quicker and respond to that feedback much quicker.
Now to share the story, we did a factory tour a few months ago, and we had a lot of practices come in from around Pittsburgh. And one doctor said her lifelong dream was to name frames and frame colors. So when we get our new colors in and our new designs, Caitlin brought her in and she got to name the frame. She was
that's amazing. You literally have been able to make dreams come true.
Right. Yeah.
Sue, I'm so glad you turned your camera on for a sec, because you're wearing North Point right now in this sort of crystal yellow color.
Yes. So it's crystal lime that I have on.
Nice.
It's one of our best-selling crystal colors. We have yellow too, which I was a little skeptical, but the yellow looks phenomenal on people. I tried to get Steve to get a yellow
on. And real quick, that chemistry clip that you put on, that's blue light blocking and a reader, or
and a reader. I'm a progressive wearer and I hate doing this. So half my ad power right on. It's beautiful. It's my favorite product after North Point.
Very nicely put. Joe, hopping back to the article again, you'd also highlighted agile marketing and sales support. And I want to talk about that a little bit more in depth, because I know, as somebody who's been in the industry for over 20 years, one of the biggest opportunities that practice owners run into pretty regularly is that they don't necessarily have the tools or the skill set to market their own business. One of the reasons vision plans have become so sticky and difficult to step away from is because they do a fair amount of marketing. So when you say Eyenavision provides agile marketing and sales support, what does that mean? What are the practical results of that kind of thing?
Well, we found that a big part of the success we had with the chemistry clips was our ability to make that feel like it's part of something unique that the practice has, and make them feel like chemistry is an extension of what they do. So with North Point, we want to be very flexible with respect to the brand. We want the opticians to feel like they're an extension of the brand, that they know more about the frames, they understand how they're made. We're very flexible in terms of the collateral material that we can provide. We actually bought a full color print system. So if somebody wants to do some sort of a easel card, or we've got different acrylic things, some of which we actually make here on our laser. We can do whatever they want to do to be able to promote, North Point. And one of the challenges in optical is every optical shop has a different approach in how they show their frames. Some are very rigid with respect to the systems they have. Others rely on POPs that from the frame manufacturers. So we try to be flexible. Whatever the practice needs, we can provide them. And also, soft materials too, collateral for the website, that kind of thing. We do photo shoots. We can provide them with whatever they need to kind of try to make North Point an extension of their own brand. And
so
that's a big thing.
Sorry, Joe, real quick. I think this is going to relate to what you're about to say. I'm going to quote real quick from the article. You write, in a very practical sense, it is our job to help you sell our product. And we take that opportunity and responsibility seriously. Whether that comes in the form of a custom display, sign, or epic launch event, we want to see you succeed. So it sounds to me like you take, as North Point Eyewear, as Eyenavision, you take a much more partnership-centric role than a typical frame manufacturer would otherwise do.
We do, and that's very important to us. I mean, one of the things that we can relate much more. I mean, we're not a huge company, and we have a lot in common with our customers. And it's what I would call more of a balanced relationship. One of the things that you find is when you're dealing with some mega company that public and all that, the reps all over, and it's almost like you're a number. And with us, we try to be very personalized attention. Person answers the phone, whatever you need, we'll make every attempt we can to provide so that you can be successful. And like I said, that served us extremely well with chemistry. And it's working out really well with North Point as well, that personalized attention and flexibility with the brand as well.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Are there any other things that you'd like to highlight from the article or about North Point before we kind of go on a brief tour?
Field trip.
No, I think we're ready to start showing you around.
Great. Yeah, let's go. And as you,
Okay.
if you don't mind, as you show us around, I'll ask questions and see what we what we can see. I'm very excited about this. I've not seen the factory either.
Okay. Yeah. Let me show you what the materials that we get and what the acetate looks like when we get it shipped in from Italy. Actually, we just got in earlier this. I think Friday this came in. We have 3 big pallets here of acetate that came in from Mazzucchelli, which they come in these pallets and these packaged in these cardboard boards that are different colors. And they come in these large sheets like so. And then we rip them on a table saw, which is right over here, which is actually a fancy saw that if you touch it, it's a saw stop, it automatically stops, so you can't cut your finger on it, which is kind of cool. But anyways, we cut it down to these thinner strips like so, which are more manageable. And actually some of the acetate does come in size. Yeah, this is called kaleidoscope, this color. And once it's cut down to this size, we actually run it through a planer. For the acetate for the frame fronts, we want it to be 6 millimeters thick. And for the temples, we want them to be 4 millimeters thick. So the planer is actually this machine here that we run them through. I'm not going to turn this on because it's extremely noisy. And we typically run this early in the morning before other tenants are in the building. But we basically, we take the sheets of this acetate and we cut it into plates, which are more manageable to be able to make into frame fronts. And once they're cut into those plates, we cut them on a CNC machine, which is right over here. We have 2 main CNC machines, one which cuts the temples and one which cuts the frame fronts. Chris here is actually our frame designer.
Hey, Chris.
He is going to show you how to cut the temples. So they'll pick up on my mic, Chris.
Okay, so we got everything queued up, so we're ready to start cutting the temples. So I'll go ahead and hit the start button right here.
So what this is doing is it's a CNC machine that's picking up a bit which will cut out the shape of the temple. So we feed these long sheets in, and what it's doing right now is it's heating up the acetate, actually a long, narrow strip with an RF heater. And what that'll do is soften the acetate. And now the sheet's going to go up, and a core wire is going to be inserted. And that core wire has a hinge on the end of it as well, so it can be attached to the frame front. This machine is unique. There's only about a dozen of these in the world that have been made that actually insert the core wire in the process of cutting the temple. So now there's actually a core wire in that sheet of acetate at the end. And this cutting bit now will cut out the shape of the temple. So cut the outer piece and it'll change bits. And what we do with this bit is we actually cut down near the temple tip to try to round that off a little bit. And to the extent it comes in contact with your skin, it doesn't dig in like a sharply cut temple would.
Mm-hmm.
So now cut the outside of the temple, and it'll come, it's got the temple clamps in those clamps, and it's going to cut the other side.
Ah, that's so cool.
Yeah. And now it'll pick up that same bit and put that comfort mill on that side.
As a self-described optical nerd, this is all I could ever want in an evening webinar, is to see like this incredible machine do these things that, you know,
Yeah.
I kind of can't quite fathom unless I'm looking right at it. Tell me, when you, with your core metal, are they cylindrical, or look at that.
Yeah, so you can actually see it in this. This is a clear acetate. You can actually
Perfect.
see the core wire in there.
Yeah.
So it has a sharp tip on the end that goes in, and it runs the length. And what that core wire does is it gives the temple some structural strength, and also allows you to adjust it and hold that adjustment with that core wire in there.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the core wires are actually, if you want to follow me behind here on this machine, they're actually loaded in the back and fed in automatically. And you can actually see it here. The core wire is actually being heated for the next one to go into the frame front. There's a heater on the core wire as well. So
Oh
once
man,
the
awesome.
the temple comes out, the last thing we do is we attach this cap to the hinge piece, which you can see here, and that allows the hinge not to be damaged when it gets tumbled in the tumbler, which we'll get to in a few minutes. So that's how the temples are cut. On this machine, Gary, who's our factory manager, will show you how to cut a frame front. So this machine spends all day cutting the fronts. It has an automatic feeder on it, so that it basically you cue it up and it runs. So you want to hit the go button right there.
So Joe, how many frames can you how many frames can you make in a given month, let's say?
With the machines we have now, if we ran them full scale all day long, we can make about 150 frames a day.
Okay.
Which, that's roughly, 600 or so a week. So, about 2,500 a month. And, so we could do roughly 30,000 frames a year if we ran it at capacity all year long.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And it's like a live episode of how it's made.
Yeah, exactly. So what this is doing now is it's cut out the inside where the lenses will go, and it also cut a groove on that to hold the bevel for the lens, and then it grips that to be able to cut the outside. So it'll switch spools here and it'll start cutting the outside of the frame. Now you'll notice there's a couple of pieces that are welded to that plate. What that does is give more depth to where the hinge goes, and also around the bridge and the navel area, because those are the thickest part of the frame front. And by welding those pieces, we have less weight to cut away. So we can use a thinner sheet and just weld where it needs build up.
You mentioned a bit earlier that you want your frame fronts to be about 6 millimeters thick and your temples to be about 4 millimeters thick. Why are those kind of the sweet spots?
Those are the sweet spots in terms of, most frames are no more than 6 millimeters thick. This machine can actually mill it down if the frame is thinner. If we have like some sunglasses are even thicker than 6 millimeters, we can bond two pieces together and make it 10 or 8 millimeters, whatever we need to be. And we actually stock some 8 millimeter acetate as well for thicker models.
I remember it when I was a practicing optician, every now and then it would be really nice to have a particularly thick frame for
Right.
a large-headed myope, somebody who
Right.
couldn't have the small round frames, but needed to hide their -11 somehow.
Hey, we're actually, one of the things we're working on now is trying to create a couple of designs that will be kind of like an acetate wrap that would be much thicker as well than what we're doing. And we're actually, experimenting with bonding sheets of acetate together to be able to make those.
God, that's
So now
awesome.
it'll switch, continue to switch tools. So this tone cutter cuts some of the details around the edge of the frame and also around the nose pad.
That's so cool. Technology is the best.
Yeah. It's depending on the complexity of the frame, it takes anywhere between about 2 to 2.5 minutes to about 4 minutes to cut a frame on this machine.
Sue, I presume you've been to the factory before. What's your favorite part of this?
That machine right there.
Right?
It is really cool. And Joe, talk about how you talked about bonding or welding the pieces for the bridge and the
Right.
hinges. It's very cool how that
Yeah.
works.
When we go back to the tumbling room, we'll show you the machine that we bond the pieces on. But this is a fairly intricate frame that has quite a few cuts on it. So there'll be, I think, one more cut around the bridge, kind of cleaning that up, and then there'll be another cut that'll cut out the pocket where the hinges will go. This will be a very fine bit, and what this is doing is it's displacing a little bit of the acetate so that when we sink the hinge in, there won't be any spillover on the hinges so the machine. These machines are incredibly accurate.
You can come see it live.
Yeah.
Actually, attendees, if you wouldn't mind, throw kind of where you are in the chat, where you are in the country. If Pittsburgh is within a driving distance from you, this would be so cool to see. As somebody, I've seen a frame factory, not this one live, but to know what a sheet of acetate looks and feels like, and it gets transformed from just acetate into eyewear. Seeing it this way is incredible because you get great looks at it, and but seeing it in person and actually feeling a fresh ground or freshly routed frame is incredible.
This is what the plate looks like before it's cut, and then this is what it looks like when it comes out. So it's still pretty rough. I mean, the edges are pretty sharp, and tumbling will clean that up. So when they come out of the machine, if there's any rough pieces, we can hand sand those. But we've kind of perfected the process of getting the milling done so that we do very little hand work before it has to go into the tumbler. And so now that the frame front is cut, the next step in the process is we go over to the machine where we insert the temples. We have two of these machines. One's for the left and one's for the right. I don't know if you have that fired up, Chris. Okay. So what he'll do is he'll take a yeah. We'll take one of these hinges, and what's unique about these hinges is if you can see there, the coating is on the inside of the hinge, not on the screw. And what that does is it gives a much smoother movement when you open and close the frame with this type of hinge design. So anyways, Chris, if you want to show how that works.
All right. So we have these brass jobs here that shoot voltage through them to heat the core wire, so that way it's able to get nice and warm and sink into the plastic. Then it has a rapid air coolant right there that's going to cool the core wire, for the pull the hinge down. So that way it'll be nice and secure in the plastic. So all we do is press our paddle right there, load it into our jaws. We've already done all the hard work positioning it. So all we need to do now is just hit this big button right here. It's taking its time so that way we don't burn up the nylon ring. So we get a nice good finish on that.
So while it's putting the hinge in place, it's keeping it warm and ensuring a snug fit. Ah, that's
Like
so
that.
cool.
Yeah, so like, and I've been in factories before where they don't drill out that pocket. And what happens is hot acetate spills over, and then they come by with a razor blade and cut it off, and it's just kind of sloppy looking. This way, it's a
Mhm.
much more precise process. And once that hinge is in there, it's not coming out.
Mhm.
Now, the other way we can attach hinges is, with a riveting system, we can rivet that front hinge in as well. Just a matter of style preference. They're both very solid construction.
And
So once it's
the pocket, sorry, Joe, the pocket for the hinge itself, that's ground in the CNC machine in the previous step.
that's the last step in the CNC machine, correct? Yes.
Awesome.
And then this, I don't know if this is on.
He's
No.
on.
Okay. For the sake of time, this is a heater. It heats the frame fronts, and it has a plate that rotates around. And then we put the frame fronts on this machine, and it just compresses it down with these silicone pads, and it puts the bend on the frame fronts. One of the unique things about our system is we do a unique block for every frame model so that it captures the precise base curve and the bend around the nose. Rather than just using like a generic 4-base or 5-base block, we actually cut one. And the way we do that is we actually have a machine over here. It's a kind of a unique piece of equipment. It's another 5-axis CNC machine that we use to cut different custom pieces for the production process. And it also is used for cutting prototypes of the frame fronts. So unlike the 5-axis CNC machine we showed you to cut the fronts, the only difference between this and that machine is it doesn't have the automatic loader. So if we load a frame to cut in there, we have to load it and then pick it up and put it to cut the outside on the on this end of it. So it's a less automated version. We cut prototypes on this in small runs so that we don't tie up the main production machine. But it's kind of a cool machine, and it's unique in this particular production process because it allows us to do rapid prototyping, which is typically a problem in a lot of high production factories because they don't want to tie up their machines that are busy doing production. So that's basically what's done to the frames before they're tumbled. If you follow me this way, in this room, we have our tumblers. The frames go through 4 phases of tumbling, each for 20 hours. So basically, we come in the morning and we unload them, clean up the frames, and advance them to the next stage. And then we start them back up again. They run for 20 hours until the next morning. The first phase of the tumbling is a very rough mixture of wood pegs and basically polishing compound. And that action of the tumbling against the frames with the wood chips and the compound in there grinds them down and kind of softens the edges in stage 1. Stage 2, it's a little bit less grit on the compound. Stage 3, it starts to polish the frames, and it's a much finer compound. Still has the big pegs. And then in stage 4, at this point, the shape is there for the frame. And what stage 4 is basically doing is just put a fine polish on the frame. This frame, if you wipe off the polish, is actually pretty shiny already at this point. But we use a very fine peg at stage 4. And when it comes out, then we have a ultrasonic cleaner that we give it a quick bath to get the polishing compound off. We were talking about those plates that we use in the CNC machine. This is the machine that friction bonds those pieces together into the plates. It's a really loud machine, so we won't turn it on. But basically, through vibration, it creates heat and friction, and it welds the 2 pieces together. Back in the old days of acetate frames, they used to actually put those together with acetone. And the problem was, obviously, acetone has a lot of fumes and it's not very good for you. So they created these friction bonding machines, which actually do a much better job and are not caustic. So at this point, after we get the frames out and they're done, one of the things we have to do to the temples is we have to engrave them. This, by the way, is the ultrasonic machine here. It's just a big jewelry cleaner, basically. That we have devices that we fill up that hold the frame fronts and the temples that we dip in there. This is a laser engraver, and what we have is these temple patterns that we load up with temples, and they align it perfectly in the laser engraver, and then we control it with a computer, and we can laser engrave whatever label we want on the temple. Let's go ahead and run that.
Hey, Joe, we've got a quick question for you about tumbling. How many hours of tumbling in total?
80 hours.
80 hours. 80 hours
80
of total tumbling. Wow.
Yeah, 20 at each stage. Yeah. So what that's doing now is this machine's amazing. It's a laser engraver. It's going back and forth, and it's putting the engraving on the temples. So when it comes out, it'll actually be indented into the temple. And then what we do is we apply a coat of paint over top and wipe it off, and the paint sinks into the indentation. So it's much more permanent than most frames are. They do what's called pad printing, where it just rests on the surface and it wears off over time. With the laser engraving, not only looks a lot better, it's much more durable. It takes a lot more time, but it's a much better result.
But that strikes me as kind of why North Point exists, right? It is about doing it right for your customers, and I think that speaks to everything that you guys do. In my experience so far, is that you source high quality acetate, you assemble it with care and precision, and you take things like the paint of the laser engraving into consideration. And you partner with your customers to provide kind of the services that they themselves don't typically have the bandwidth to do. I know how you're going to answer this, but where do you cut corners?
No, we really don't. I mean, that's one of the things that we really don't. I mean, we try to everything we do. Even one of the areas we get feedback too, like with our sunglass lenses. We buy better sunglass lenses. Not only are they polarized, they've got a really good AR coating. We use either nylon or polycarbonate, depending upon the color, and they hold up extremely well. And people are always amazed at the quality of the lenses we use as well. This machine's a demo lens cutter. Basically has a suction on it. It's almost like the old-fashioned pattern exit. You put a pattern of a frame in there, and it cuts out the demo lens. And then we actually take the demo lens and we laser engrave it with the North Point logo as well, rather than putting a sticker on there or stamping it. We actually laser engrave the demo lens. It looks a lot better, and it shows a lot better on the customer's boards. And then over here is where this table is where they paint the frames. We've got these different paint sticks, different colors that we just basically wipe on and wipe off, and have a process for doing it. This is what a frame looks like before the black temple. You can kind of see the unpainted logo, and this is what it looks like after it's been painted. So now at that point, it's been painted, and the pieces are ready to be assembled. And this is actually one of the most difficult processes in the frame factory, and that is what we call angling. So we take a temple, and these are old temples from when we started out that we used to calibrate the machine. But you take a temple and you put it in this angling machine, and this is adjusted to be the right angle, and it's cut so that the temple fits perfectly to the frame front. Getting this angle perfect is key. If you overcut it, you've got to start over again with a new temple. But we angle it so that it fits perfect to the frame front. We also try to get it perfect so that the edge doesn't have a sharp corner on the outside where the frame front meets the temple.
You know, it's
And so
excellent at seeing all of this happen, because as you're talking about this, a lot of these things are what I noticed when I got my North Point frame.
Right.
You may not be able to tell over Zoom, but I have a gigantic head. So I'm
Right.
accustomed to stretching every frame that I put on and hearing it complain at me while I'm doing it. And, you know, as somebody who's accustomed to that for the last 20 years of glasses wearing, to put these on and not hear them complain, and to also like see that and feel that the temple is flush to the front and there's no squeaking and nothing to catch on anything. It actually speaks to the quality. It's something that, you know, I knew all of those things without having seen how these are produced because of the result on my face. I think that's tremendous.
Yeah. Thanks. So across the top here, Steve, is we've got a perfect set of temples for each frame design that we've got here. And we've also got like a template of the demo lens. So once we have the frame assembled, we double check it. So we have these template for every frame here that we put the frame over to make sure that the temples line up. This is for the Elliott. I'm wearing the Manchester frame, but my frame's been adjusted. So. But this template is what we do to ensure that that it fits perfect. And then this final machine then, so at this point, the temples are still straight. We put it in this machine like so, and the temples go in there. And then if you press this button, this isn't hooked up right now, but it comes down and it bends the temple, and it gives a little bit of the inward inclination, so that you've got the bend. And then this machine is actually a mechanized screwdriver. It has a suction on the end here. You put the frame on, fits over here. The hinge aligns with like a little pin there, and this automatically puts the screw into the hinge at the right torque. And usually it's done so precise we don't have to do a lot of adjustment afterwards to get the temple to open and close smoothly. So at that point, we have basically a finished frame. If there's any kind of final polishing that needs to be done to bring the shine out, we run them through our polishing wheels. We've got 2 sets here. There's 4 different wheels. If there's any, typically this would be done even before assembly. If there's any marks or places where the shine needs brought out, we have 4 different steps that we run it through. All the frames go through at least stages 3 and 4 to get a really good shine on them. It really brings out the polish. And then after that is done, we go back to this table in the back where we have a couple of people here working that they go through final inspection. And again, they have a template for every frame to make sure they're aligned properly. And they go through final packaging and insert the demo lenses, insert the sun lenses. And it's all finalized at this table. We have all the backing cards here for all the different frames for final packaging. We've got frames and bins that are ready to be packaged. And then what we try to do is keep work in process in terms of inventory. So if we have a stock out of a frame, we've got the pieces here that we can pull out. Like this is the Elliott here. We can just pull the frame. We've got the temples over here. We can quickly assemble one and ship it out. And sometimes we'll even cobble together pieces and create if somebody maybe the frame's a 135 temple and they've got a patient whose ears are back a little bit further, they need a 140 or 145, we can work with them and potentially either find pieces here to put it together, or if need be, it takes like a week to 7 to 10 days to run through the process and produce one for them. We try to do those little kind of things to help our customers. If they've got a patient who's difficult to fit, we can help them with that as well. But that's basically the process, Steve. I don't know if you have any questions or comments.
I mean, I personally have a million questions and comments, but you know that's how that's what it's like talking to me. But I'd love to open the conversation to any of the attendees who have questions about the process or Eyenavision or chemistry clips, anything like that. Please feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to ask over audio or throw in a question in the Q&A. What's that yellow
This is the
acetate
yellow,
you got
the
there?
yellow acetate that Sue was trying to sell you on. We've got, like I said, we've got about, we're up to about 40 or 50 colors now of acetate that we stock, and it'll go up by a few with this new order coming in. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, I do have a couple of questions as the attendees are kind of thinking if they've got questions. But Sue, you it looks like you wanted to say something, so I'll open the floor to you.
Oh, I know we have somebody on that was interested in private label. And one of the great things about that is you can choose the model that you want. And we have a ring that has all our colors of acetate. And you can really say, okay, I like the frame Steve's got on, and I want it in Tutti Frutti was my new favorite frame color. And so you get to sort of customize it a little bit. And we do the demo lens and your logo. We have a great marketing team and artists that can help create a logo if you don't have one, or create a brand, really. Because some people don't want to say, hey, it's Dr. Smith on their temple. They want something, a little more exclusive. And again, the North Point it's been really well received. And I know Joe talked to this, but really taking our customers' feedback. I think we're really good at that, and we're quick to react. I know Joe said that, but like instantly we're hearing, okay, the frames are too small. They're great for petite fit. And then Joe works with Chris and Gary, and then a few weeks later, it's like, okay, now we have it in this bigger size. We need more colors, and we have it in more colors. So it's great. And I know there's a question there.
Yeah, a really good one too. Can you request specific temple size, or can you specify a temple size with private label?
We want to reach the point when we build up more inventory where we can, with private label, you can, but we want to have with our frames different frame widths and also different temple lengths for the frame, so that people can specify, especially for the more popular designs, different temple lengths, because that's a real problem. Nothing's worse than when you see somebody wearing a frame where the temple is either 10 millimeters too long or way too short, and it's been adjusted, but it just doesn't look right. So I mean, we're working towards, we have that capability now, but we're working towards being able to fulfill those kind of orders much quicker.
Got it. Another question from the audience: how many frames does there have to be to have a successful private label order, or is there a minimum requirement to get those custom branded collections?
Right now, we have 29 different models, and a few of the models are in multiple widths. Typically, we've gone as low as 50 frames for somebody to do like a private label run. Ideally, we'd like to see somebody do around 75 to 100 though, and then they can pick the colors they want. And one of the things, I mean, we try to be flexible. We'll provide some guidance based on what we see sell, but every optician has a different view as to what their needs are for their practice and what their customers are looking for. So we try to be as flexible as we can, but we try to cooperate. Like I said, we have an in-house designer, Chris, who can provide feedback as well on different colors. And like I said, what we see that's selling better. And as far as temple lengths go, if we specify a 140 and you want it to be a 145, that's not a problem, or vice versa.
So if kind of following on to the private label question, if Steve's Optical wanted to have private label frames from Eyenavision, and I don't have a brand in mind, but maybe would like to think of one, what is the typical time frame from I've decided that I want to explore this to you guys are the right organization to work with to, okay, I have frames in my store that I can sell now? How long, what's the timeline feel like?
It depends. If somebody wants to basically, if they've worked out what their brand is, maybe they just want to name it after their store, and they pick, they work with our existing frame designs and our existing colors. It can be a matter of we've done it as short time as 2 or 3 weeks. If they want to go with all new colors but the same frame designs, it can take 5 or 6 weeks to get them produced. It just depends on the mix, and but it's pretty quick. I mean, we try to do it as efficiently as possible, because we don't want to be sitting on an order a long time either. We want to be working through the system as a group, because it just makes it a lot easier if we laser engrave and work on the do all the temples at the same time. It makes it easier on our end as well. So like I said, it could be anywhere from a few weeks to 5 or 6 weeks, depending upon, like I said, the pace that the customers want to move at as well.
But we're not talking about months, or certainly not years.
No,
but it depends on kind of the response rates. That makes sense. Another question. Sorry, Joe. Another question about temple length. What is the longest available temple length in general? And is it like right now he suggested 150, 155. Can we go longer if we do like a private label? Could we get a 160? Is that where does it end, so to speak?
The core wires that we buy, we can go, what, Chris, up to about 150, 155 on the temple length. Yeah, 155 at the most. I think we get around 152. I know we've cut 150s before, but it gets the way our temples break down, it's hard to get much longer than that, just by the nature of the machine that we have and the core wires that we stock. It's a little bit, I guess if you had an extra 5 millimeters on the end, and it was a solid color, you wouldn't be able to see it. But around 155 would be the max, I would anticipate.
Got it. Well, I appreciate everybody's time. I know we're coming up to the end of the event this evening. Sue, before we wrap up, is there anything that you'd like to say? What does somebody learning about Eyenavision for the first time need to know?
That we are really easy to do business with, and we really want to help you succeed. And we don't sell to the chains, to the Walmart, Costco, lens crafters, any of those. So that's, most of our customers are independent ECPs, and that's really who we cater to. And we're very proud of that. And somebody will always answer the phone when you call our company. It's awesome.
It's that is so valuable. I know it seems like something minor, but oh my God, it's massive to know that your call is going to be picked up and people care about giving you a good answer. That is tremendous. Joe, any last words of wisdom?
No, I thank you, Steve, and we're glad to be part of the Prosper program, and Anagram has been great for us to work with as well. You guys have a valuable service for the ECP.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Sue and Joe and everyone from the Eyenavision team. Thanks everybody for showing up this evening. Be on the lookout for this to come out as an audio file in addition to the article. If you've not read it yet, have a look at Bringing Local Back, the article on Spyglass. Thank you everybody for being here. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye all.